A mother and daughter are found brutally murdered inside their home. A man would be arrested twice for their murders, and yet this case is still unsolved. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Gail Matthews and Tamara Berkheiser. Viewer discretion is advised. Quick before we get started, of course, hello, my name is Mike. If you're new to the channel, I tell 3 true crime stories every week here on YouTube, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So please subscribe if you're into that kind of thing and you're a bunch of cuckoo wackadoos like the rest of us. I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok, where I'm probably more known. I have about 3 million followers or so over there. Thank you for 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube, by the way. That's amazing. I appreciate all of you. But the link to my TikTok will be in the link tree in the description of this video below. It also pops up here at some points towards the beginning of the video and at the end. So yeah, please feel free to follow. And I also sell merch. We ship all over the world. The link tree has that link as well. And then lastly, if there's a case you want me to cover, just email me. My email is listed below too, but it's makingatruecrimerertwo. And just email me the name of the person, where it happened, when it happened. I'll add it to my list. Can't promise you when I'll cover it because I picked the cases at random, and it'll happen one day. I just can't tell you when. All right. And anyway, also I hope you all had a wonderful and happy holiday if you celebrate any particular holiday this time of year. All right. But let's get into today's story. It was Friday, September 2nd, 1994 in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Lois Beakley went to check in on her daughter, Gail Matthews, because she hadn't heard from Gail in about a day, which was very unusual. So Lois and a family friend would get inside the car. They would head over to Gail's home, and they knock on the door. Nobody answers. And so they notice the door is unlocked. They enter the house. When they do enter the home, they see something that no mother should ever have to see. They go into the bedroom of Lois's granddaughter, Tamara, 5 years old, and it's a bloodbath. Gail Matthews, who was 23 years old, was found brutally murdered alongside her 5-year-old daughter, Tamara. Lois and the friend, they run out of the house. They go next door because they don't know who may still be in the home, and they go to call 911. The ambulance arrives, but it's already far too late for EMS to do anything. Both young women are pronounced dead. Gail Matthews was the 23-year-old mother of 5-year-old Tamara, and Tamara was her entire world. She was dedicated to Tamara beyond anything else in her life. She was a single mom. Gail had started dating a man named Eric Berkheiser when they were both in high school, and when Gail was 18 years old, she got pregnant. At some point in the relationship, Gail and Eric, they broke it off, but Tamara would take, Eric's last name. Eric was, from what I understand, still involved in Tamara's life. He would visit her on the regular. He lived still in Williamsport, and he was always just a few minutes away. Gail, at the time of this case, was working as a waitress at a cafe. People in town would describe her, and her family would describe her as being very quiet, very reserved, kind of shy, but also really sweet, a really kind young woman. She was raised right. She didn't have, any people in her life that hated her or disliked her. She never really fought with anyone. Never had any beef, never had any enemies. She didn't have any jilted exes. As a matter of fact, Eric was looked into as being a possible suspect in this case, but police would learn just based on kind of who he was and based on where he was at the time and everything. They looked very much heavily into him, and they figured out that he had absolutely nothing to do with this. And, he loved his daughter especially, and he would never, ever do anything, especially to harm his daughter. Tamara was only 5 years old. She barely got to experience life, but she was really excited because she was just about to start kindergarten, and she kept saying how happy she was and excited she was to start that. The neighbors would describe her as just a super polite young girl, and again, she was raised right as well. She was kind of just the kid that everyone would play with in the neighborhood. The neighbor said we would see her outside every day. She was out there playing and interacting, and just a really sweet kid. And no one could imagine who on earth would do this, let alone to Gail Matthews, but also who the hell would do this to a 5-year-old girl, and why? The coroner determined that Gail had been stabbed about 12 times. They, like 10 to 12 times. I guess they couldn't exactly pinpoint each stab wound, but it was a lot. Tamara, meanwhile, had been strangled. They put a cloth and they tied it around her neck and they pulled it and they choked her to death. A 5-year-old girl. They also noticed that Tamara had been struck in the head with some kind of blunt force object. What that object was, however, they weren't really sure. It also didn't appear to the coroner that either of the female victims had been sexually assaulted in any way. Which is strange because you think in this type of scenario, you think, well, the motive was likely sexual in nature because the house itself looked pristine, they described it as. It looked immaculate. Nothing had been stolen. Everything that she owned was still there. Her wallet was there. Her money was there. Everything was there. Nothing was rummaged through. There weren't things thrown all over the place. One family member would say the house always looked clean. It was always clean, but in this case, it actually looked cleaner than usual. And they came to the conclusion that the person who did this, likely thoroughly cleaned the house, meaning they may have tried to wipe down for fingerprints and any other kind of evidence they may have left behind of themselves, but it looked as if someone cleaned it up. The coroner couldn't determine the exact time of death for either girl, but the detectives realized the last time anyone had seen both of them together was at 9 p.m. the following evening on September 1st, and they were just seen outside their home, and they were observed going in the home, and nobody else was with them. And as far as anyone can tell, no one had gone to the house. No one had visited them in the hours before. No one saw anyone enter the home afterwards. Given the condition of the crime scene and the fact that no one really heard any kind of screaming or altercation, they first thought, well, Gail must have let this person in, or these people in, because they don't know if it was one person or two people, but at first there was no forced entry. The doors weren't kicked in or broken in. The front windows didn't appear to be broken in, but then as they go to the back or the side, I guess, there's a window in the kitchen, and that's when they see that one of the, I guess, screens or the door had been forced open. And that was determined to be how the person entered the home. So in the end, there was forced entry. And so they would go through and they would start questioning everyone in the neighborhood to see what else they may know. They questioned everybody in Gail's life, friends, family, her coworkers at the cafe. And like I said earlier, they interviewed Eric, the ex, and they determined he had nothing to do with this. The police also found out that Gail was actually dating someone at the time, and there wasn't any animosity between this person that Gail was dating and the Tamara's father, and so there wasn't any kind of rift between them that may have led to something like this. And they also determined, based on alibis, based on other witness statements and everything, that the current boyfriend, had nothing to do with this either. They kept getting names of people, tips about who may have done this, and they go through each and every person that came up as even a potential suspect or just even a person of interest, and one by one they cleared them. And it was just they were at a loss as to who did this and why they did this. This looked as if it was a random home invasion, that the person just killed the two ladies inside, didn't sexually assault them, didn't steal anything. So this person just broke in simply to kill two people? It seems odd. Usually there's at least one other factor, like a sexual assault or a robbery, but none of those appear to be present in this. Could there have been a sexual encounter that just didn't show any kind of physical force, Sure. Just because the coroner doesn't find evidence of a sexual assault doesn't mean it didn't happen. They just didn't have any evidence of it. And there was also, from what I understand, no male bodily fluid left behind or found. So fast forward to August of 1995, the police there in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, they announced to the public that they're going to be exhuming the bodies of Gail and Tamara because they caught wind of this new type of forensic testing where you could actually pull fingerprints or palm prints off of a person's body. And they were like, it's worth a shot. And the family agreed, and so the bodies were exhumed. But, just given the time that they were already kind of buried and just sort of the natural state of decay, they really weren't able to get any evidence off of their bodies. So they didn't get any fingerprints, they didn't get any DNA or anything like that. And it just kind of goes back to being quiet, goes back to being cold. They got nothing. And then in March of 1998, police announced, we've made an arrest. Earl Kramer III was arrested and charged with the murder of Gail and Tamara. They said he was also being charged with burglary and basically charges related to breaking in the home. So Earl Kramer, whose photo I can't seem to find, but at the time he was 32 years old, and he was actually, at the time of the murders, was dating Gail's neighbor. From what I understand, this guy was looked at and considered a possible suspect at first when the investigation first happened, but they never had any evidence or corroborating witness statements to kind of put him in the crime scene. But when they arrested him in 1998, and I'm not even sure what they arrested him on, because like I said, they didn't have fingerprints or shoe impressions or hair samples or DNA or anything to link to the actual killer physical evidence wise. They didn't have anything. So what they arrested him based on, I'm not 100% sure, but pretty soon after he was arrested, the county judge there in the area basically dismissed all of the charges against him, and it was for insufficient evidence. They had nothing. So police then take all the evidence they have and they send it all to the FBI, and they said, hey, do your magic, work your wonders, your crazy powers that be to find something on these pieces of evidence that we can catch this person. This is a guy, or girl, I guess, who murdered a 23-year-old woman and her 5-year-old daughter. We need to catch this person. So 4 years goes by, now it's 2002, sometime around March, and they arrest Kramer again for the second time. This time they felt they had more evidence. You see, initially when the murders were discovered, Earl Kramer was, I guess, in his car down the street from the house. Basically when police arrived to first investigate this. So according to one of Gail's siblings, when Earl was first noticed in the car, he had glitter on his shoes. He had glitter, I guess, on the seat of his car. And the image I'm showing, by the way, of glitter on a seat is not the actual evidence, just a random photo. And according to the family member, Gail's family member, he also apparently had blood on his shoes. Now, the police and the FBI have never announced that there was blood found on his shoes. And even to this day, 2023, all these years later, they've never said it. They never said we have blood evidence that links him to this. However, the glitter was sort of like the big key thing, because there was also glitter found at the crime scene. And the glitter probably belonged to Gail or came somewhere from the house. And they would take the glitter found at the crime scene and the glitter found on Earl Kramer's shoe and his seat in the car, and they said that it was a match. They said it was pretty much the same exact glitter. Now, can they say with positivity, with 100% certainty, that is the exact same glitter? I don't think so. But at the same time, what are the odds? What are the odds of you finding the pretty much 99% identical looks, chemically? They look at it. They don't just look at it and go, oh, that's the same glitter. They really forensically analyze this with a bunch of smart people doing their thing, right? And they're like putting it through all these devices, and they're determining that this is basically the same glitter. And so they felt that was enough compelling evidence to suggest that Earl Kramer had to have been in the house during the murder. And now at this point, the judge says, okay, now we can go forward. We can move ahead with this. And then it kind of stalls for a couple of years. And about 2 years after he's arrested for the second time, Earl Kramer is then released again. This time, the DA, who was in charge of prosecuting this case, said, we are releasing Earl Kramer based on the fact that we still just don't have enough evidence to say we can confidently prove our case and get a conviction. And so once again, this guy is back out there. Did this guy do it? I don't know. Do they have a motive for why he did this? I'm not sure. They just have the fact that he knew Gail because he was the boyfriend of her neighbor. So he at least has seen her before. But you have to go back to the fact that why did this happen? Why did this double homicide even occur? What led to it was because nobody was sexually assaulted as far as they could tell. Nothing was stolen as far as they could tell. A person did break into the house though. And so what did they break into the house? What was the purpose of that? What was their goal? Was the goal to, maybe it was to sexually assault Gail. Gail woke up. Maybe Gail put up a fight. And maybe it thwarted this person's plans, and so he just stabbed her. And then maybe he realized that Tamara had seen something or heard something, so he had to kill her too. And, maybe this is not one of those types of sickos who will sexually assault someone after they're deceased, and so he just left it. That's a possibility. That could have been the motive. But have they proven that, or did they have that established? Again, I'm not sure. The glitter is kind of an interesting piece of evidence if you think about it. How often do you see glitter places? It's not super common. And the fact that forensically the glitter from his car and his shoe was a damn near identical match, not 100%, but damn near identical to the glitter found at the actual murder scene, that's pretty compelling if you really think about it. That at least places that person more than likely, allegedly, in the house. But did he actually kill anyone? That's a different story. Has he ever said, well, yeah, I've been to her house before. Maybe that's why the glitter is there. I don't know if he said that at all. I'm not sure. Then in 2010, there was now a new district attorney on the case. I think there was new investigators on the case. And they're all still pretty much gung-ho on trying to find who did this and getting that person and putting them away for as long as they can. That's when they announced that they also had another piece of physical evidence. And maybe they had this back then and just didn't say it, but they have said at this point in 2010 that there was a fiber found on Earl Kramer's clothing at the time he was found in his car with the glitter. That fiber matched a stuffed teddy bear, fiber from a stuffed teddy bear that belonged to Tamara. Again, it is not an identical 100% match. It's another one of those things where visually, under a microscope, it's the same fiber. And it sounds to me like they really think that this Earl Kramer person is the guy, but they can't also say that for sure. And now, with it being 2010 at that point, we're talking a couple of decades that basically have passed, and you have so much speculation and so much hearsay and so much just rumblings from the community, people saying things that may not be true, people just putting stuff out there. And so it makes the investigation even more difficult, especially that considering it was already a pretty weak investigation from the beginning. I don't mean weak in terms of how they handled it. I mean in terms of what they had evidence-wise to deal with. I think the family, from a quote I read, I think they think that the initial investigators were working with tunnel vision at the time, only focusing on Earl Kramer once they found him with that glitter and all that. And they didn't really ever focus on anyone else after that. And so you have now 20 some odd years later where the person who may have done it, if it wasn't Earl Kramer, has had all this time to get away with it, to hide evidence or burn things or destroy things or move away or whatever the case may be. And so that person may have just gotten away with it if it wasn't Earl Kramer. Every September that has gone on since the murders took place, the family holds a vigil for Tamara and Gail, and all about remembering them, but also about making sure their case isn't forgotten, making sure the police know that, you know, we're still looking for answers. As a family, we're looking for help here. And they do it to also just raise awareness in the community, like, hey, there is a killer out there. He may still be in the community, and so just, you know, we need this to be solved. But also, mainly, the vigils are to remember the two ladies. 2018 comes, and the more recent detective, he retires, and, you know, he never gets to solve the case. And unfortunately, Gail's mom, Lois, she passes away in 2018, and she never found out what happened to her daughter and her granddaughter. She never got to find out the answer. But, you know, Gail does still have other family members alive, and they're still going to do this for Gail, for Tamara, and, you know, for Lois. And now I'm filming this the day after Christmas, 2023, and the murder of Gail and Tamara is still unsolved. They do not have anyone in custody. No one else has been arrested. This Earl Kramer person has gone now decades without ever being, you know, tried for anything involved in this case, and did he even do it? I can't say that. They have some compelling evidence that may have placed him in the crime scene, but was he the guy? You got to be able to prove it, and you got to be able to show that with evidence, or he's got to say something. And that's the thing, is like we always say, killers talk. Killers love to talk. Killers brag. Let's say they got drunk one night and they're like, I did this thing, and, you know, maybe someone overheard something, and maybe that someone is you. Somebody somewhere out there knows the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. And if you have any information about the double homicide of Gail Matthews and Tamara Berkheiser, please contact the district attorney there in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and you can reach them at 570-327-2466. This family and this community, and especially Gail and Tamara, they deserve justice. They deserve to be finally resting in peace. Their families deserve the answers. They deserve the truth. So please, if you have any information, you can report it anonymously. You do not have to say who you are. You just have to say what you know. Help Tamara, help Gail get the justice they so rightfully deserve. But that is it for this case. True crime, a Rooney Dooney Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. Hopefully one day justice is served. Like I said at the beginning, please subscribe to the channel if you're into true crime. Give this video a like so more people can see it, and the more people that can see it, maybe the right person will see it and get the information that these people need. Follow me over on TikTok. It's linked below. Shows up here at some point. I sell merch. Recommend a case to my email listed below. And to finish this video, I'm going to list all of the things that I asked Santa for Christmas, but did not get. Did in fact ask for my 2 front teeth, but he did not deliver. I asked for glue, not for sticking things together, but for sniffing. Once again, he did not come through. I asked for blue waffles, and all he sent me was vomit. I'm not sure what that means. Don't Google it. Don't. I asked for a 6th night at Freddy's, but he told me to go myself, which is very un-Santa-like. I asked Santa for a man for Christmas, and he just said, "You're a ho-ho-ho," which I thought was rude. I asked for a pen in order to write my list down because I didn't have a pen to do so. So, again, he told me to eat a bag of which again, I'm not really sure if I'm communicating with Santa at this point. And finally, I asked for a Turbo Man action figure, but he said some muscly dude from Austria got the last one. And so I'm like, well, you're Santa, can't you just make one? He said that's not how it works. So I got nothing. Bah humbug.